Welcome everyone. You want to make sure you've got some liquid glue, and you might want tweezers. They're not really required. It's if you want to kind of use them to place things, but the toothpick might be just as helpful to nudge things in. I didn't use the tweezers to make this card. It just kind of worked out on its own. So I will start going over some of the stuff we have in our kits today. What's in your kit is paper strips of a bunch of pastel colors. There is a quilling tool that looks like this. And this is just a basic one. There are other kind of quilling tools out there. So like this one is the same idea. It's just gonna get you some bigger coils. And then there's these type that are a little harder to get your spirals on, but you would get something more like this with a smaller hole out of it because it doesn't have that center piece. What makes it harder to use is you don't have something that's gripping on there for you. And then the library also has this little thing, which can be used to do different sizes, just kind of helping you gauge what size you want, and a little spinning tool up here that would be used with the straight tool. And there's all kinds of other quilling tools as well out there. But for this project, all we need is our basic one that is in your kit. There's also a little piece of plastic. We'll use that to put our glue on, and then that way we can kind of have a work surface that's not going to soak in all the glue as we're working. And then, of course, you've got your card, which you can fold into shape, and envelope that you'll use when you're finished. As for if you did want to send this through the mail, you would have to pay extra postage because of the extra detail on there. They have to hand stamp it instead of run it through the machine. So on the back of your paper, I've included an image with all kinds of different shapes that you could possibly make. I also have here a sample of shapes that I've made. And I will go through how to make these shapes. So before you even get started on your card, you might want to just make a bunch of shapes that you can then place into the flower patterns you want. So here in my sample, you can see I've got a variety of just circles, these kind of diamond shapes, some kind of more of a half moon, and other shapes throughout. So you can use this as a reference to kind of decide on some of your shapes, but I'll go over how to make these shapes using our quilling tool. And we'll actually want a little bit of glue to start with, so you can take your plastic and just put a little glue on there to get us started. And I'll also take my toothpick that I can use. So we'll start with the basic, just round shape, and just take any color you'd like. And then you see there's a little slot here in the quilling tool. You'll slide it in, and then you just start rotating it. That slot will help grip it so that you don't have to worry about it slipping away. And you just roll it and keep rolling it until you reach the end. Now, if you wanted to make something bigger, you could glue some strips together, or if you want to make it smaller, you could cut the strip down to make it a smaller piece. And once I reach the end here, I'm just going to take a little bit of glue, stick it here on the end, and then seal it up. Maybe hold it for a couple seconds, and then I can pop the tool out. I'm going to squish it together a little bit, and there we go. We've got our first piece. So it's going to have that little bit in the middle just because of the way this tool works, how it grips it. And then if you want something more like this or something more like this, instead of like gluing it immediately, you're going to let it release a little bit. So I'll show one of those. So same process. You just put that paper into that slot and roll once again. And before I glue, I'm actually going to pull the quilling tool out and then just kind of let go of it a little bit till it's to the point that I want it to be, how loose I want it, or if I want it looser, I can let go of it even more. So there it is, pretty loose, more like this one. And then I'll add my glue. And close it up. So this is going to be the foundation of pretty much all of them. Now the difference between this one and this one is I didn't glue the end. I just took this whole thing, plopped it down in the glue, and glued it to the surface. So if you wanted to make some of these, you probably want to wait until you're starting to glue things on your card so that you can just get it down in place. So then I'm going to start moving on to these other shapes that we can make. So this one, or even this one, would make some nice leaves, or this could be a petal as well. I used that one as a leaf here, and then I used those as petals in this flower here. And for centers, I actually used this type, and I also used this type for flowers. I'm gonna take another color, any color, load it in just like before, roll it, and it doesn't matter if you roll it towards yourself or if you roll it away from yourself, whichever is more comfortable for you to do. I took out the tool and then I just kind of let it have some space so that I can squish it around. I'm going to add some glue, close it up, and then to make this shape, I just pinch one end. So then you have that teardrop shape. And then this one, you're just going to pinch on both ends. So done the same way, you glue it together after giving it some space to work with. And then once I've got it glued, I'm just going to pinch on both ends to make this more diamond kind of shape. Now these ones end up having 3 points that are pinched. So I kind of shape it more into a heart here. Here I'm going for more of a triangle, and here I kind of bend in the triangle. So actually when I'm pinching, it kind of also pinches those inside parts. So I'm thinking these will make nice leaves, the heart-shaped ones. So I'm going to start with a green one. And once I've made a bunch of these, I can start kind of forming the flowers that I want. Take out my tool, release it a little bit, glue the end. Now we're ready to shape it. Now I'm going to pinch once down at the bottom. So we're at a teardrop, but then here I'm going to kind of push down to make that heart shape, but then pinch up on these two right here. So now we've got more of a heart shape. Kind of press it down a little just so I don't get a sharp point like those. So there we have a heart shape. And then the triangle shape. Same process. And then pinch 3 points. 1, 2, and 3. So there's a triangle. Now if I want to make it more of that kind of triangle, which I believe when I saw online, it was a shark bite, you just kind of press in the centers then as well. There we go. And then this is like the same idea, but you're doing 4. It's the same process. Once it's glued, you're ready to pinch it. So I'm going to pinch my first 2, which, oh, mine came unglued. Glue that back together. Which when you leave it that way, it's actually similar to this shape here. It's just mine's a little looser than those ones were left to be. And then to make the 4 square, I'll just do the last 2 pinches. So there we have 4. And then if you want to do something like this, you would do more like this and then bend it. So those make pretty good leaves. I'll take a green one, start with the same process. I'm gonna pinch both ends, but then as I'm pinching, I'm gonna start pushing opposite direction. So my pinch on the right side, I'm kind of pushing down, and my pinch on the left side, I'm pushing up at the same time. And then it makes that kind of lightning bolt shape. And depending on how hard you pinch it, you get more pointy spots like this one, or this one I didn't really pinch it too much, so it ends up a little more curved. Now for things like this, I just took a section of the paper and glued it down. You'd want to do stuff like that for the stems. This one I just made a spiral, pulled it loose, and then glued it down. This one is basically this idea, but you're going to curl from both sides. So say if you want to use that for maybe a flower, I'm going to curl this side halfway and then go to the other side and curl that in. And I could either glue it down at this point, so it would be like this one, or if I want it to be a heart, I'm just going to take some of that in between paper and pinch it, and then there you have your heart. And I can kind of adjust the spirals a little bit before they get glued down, because this one's a lot tighter than the other side. But this one also, I didn't quite do half and half, so there's a lot more on this side to work with. Now, if you want to do the scroll, you would just do the same thing, except for when you split the half. So I'm going to do this half this way. I'm rolling towards me. Let go. I'm going to try to loosen it up a bit. Now, when I flip it, I'm going to make sure that I'm flipping the opposite direction. So when I start rolling towards me, I'm going to be rolling it this direction, and that'll make a scroll shape, or more like an S shape. There, I let go. And then I would just glue it down the way I want it. So you'll want to decide if you want your card to open this way, or if you want it to open this way. And then you'd work from there. I'm going to have mine open this way, since the last one I did opens this way. At this point, I can start kind of planning what I want to do. If I have just a whole bunch of these already, I could start laying them out, trying to decide like what I want to do. Or I can start building more pieces to make the flowers that I kind of have in mind that I want to make. When I did this, what I kind of did was I started with stems and just glued those down first, which I just took a piece of green, decided how long I wanted it, and you can either tear, or another thing you might want, scissors. You could cut it, and then over here with the glue, because it's on this nice plastic, you can just kind of slide it through the glue to get a nice edge of glue on your paper. Might have to just tape this down. And then just place it where you want it. And it might tilt a bit. One thing you could do is hold it up with some of your extra pieces. And because my paper wants to bend upward, I'm gonna tape it down for a second. So I'm just using those right now to hold it in place. And you might need a little more glue at this point, since you'd be gluing things down. And you could also bend your stem to be more wobbly like this. But I actually kind of like the idea of using something like this to make a flower. So I think what I'll do is take that, but I want to make a center for it. So I'm going to make one of the tight circles. And to glue one of these pieces in place, I'm just going to run it through the glue. And this is where maybe you'd want tweezers just so that your fingers don't get glue on it, but I don't mind getting a little messy. I can wash my hands later. You might have even noticed I already have paint on my hands from a different project I was working on. And then once it's dry, it'll be in place and you don't have to worry about it coming off. And I'm gonna need maybe 3 more of the heart ones. So make those real fast. And you can be as creative with this as you'd like. You can use all kinds of shapes. And even if a shape is not pictured, if you have it in your ideas, you can create it and use it if you'd like. Yeah, and I like to lay out my flowers before gluing everything in place. Because once it's glued down, oh, I forgot what I was doing here. Once it's glued down, you're not going to be able to easily move it. Oh, since I did the wrong thing, I'm just going to make another petal that can be used later for something else. And this should be dry enough that I don't need to have anything standing there anymore, so I can take those extra pieces off and maybe even think about what kind of leaf should go there. And since this is kind of a heart flower, I went with the heart leaf. So now that I have all the petals that I want, I can start gluing them. I can either use the toothpick to help me put glue on there, or I can just kind of do what I did with that one piece, dip it in the glue. And I find that works the best for me. Place it where I want it. And you can do little adjustments if you need to. I'm going to use the clean side of my toothpick here to kind of adjust it a little bit. Yeah, and if you have a piece that looks like it doesn't have glue on it and you need to add some, you can always use the toothpick to kind of put some more in there to make sure that spot holds. And this first flower I made is very large, so I didn't really leave room for a whole lot of other ones. But what I could do is use this little spirally one, maybe make a flower off of that. Use that as a stem as well. What I think I'll do is little things like that. So I might actually want to make smaller ones since this is going to be a small flower. So how I'm going to do that is just cut my paper in half. I'm just going to tear it. I will continue working on more flowers. We do have upcoming, if you wanted to repeat this program in person, we do have it coming up here in the library on the 24th. As for about quilling, there's all kinds of different quilling tools if you want to get more into it. And then they also sell strips of paper, but the strips of paper that I've included in your kits are actually ones that I cut out myself, because usually it's It's a lot of money for just paper. Like $5 for a pack of some, about the amount I gave you guys. But if you want all your pieces of paper to be even, that might be the route you want to go, because yeah, I definitely wasn't able to get everything completely straight or the same width every time, though it kind of adds to the whimsical nature of the quilled project. And if you do want to get into more quilling as well, along with where I have the craft kits by the elevator here in the library, I have some quilling books on display that you can check out so you can get new inspiration and ideas. So I planned this flower out, and then I'm gonna think about the stem for it. Come up and around, yeah. Add my glue. I'm just curving it into the shape I want it. And then I'll build my flower around that. So I might be able to fit another flower in here, maybe more like this kind of flower, which is kind of like lilies of the valley. What we can do for those is doing that like C shape. Maybe I'll do pink. No, there's enough pink on here. Do the purple again. Roll it just like usual. Glue it like usual. And then pinching it this way. Kind of like the heart, but not as pushed in. There we go. I've got my finished card. I'm going to take my tape off that I just needed so it wouldn't swing open. And then I'm going to let it dry before I try to take it anywhere. Good luck, and thanks for joining.